Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to some race reaction to the 2023 Australian Grand Prix, and a race that was slowly cruising towards being a bit of a tyre management fest and sort of tailing away towards the end. It all went a little bit dramatic, didn't it? Absolute chaos in the end. We'll get into all of that, of course, as we always do. In these race reactions, we'll come to you throughout as well. I've got Will with me today. A couple of things before I go any further, though. First of all, thank you so much to Sab Mariners fan for your super chat. Says, well, that was certainly an F1 race of all time. Cheers, guys. It's 4 a.m. in Texas. I need to go to bed. Go to bed. But thank you very much for your super chat. Massively appreciated. You can also vote, by the way, or rate the race. At the moment, 43% of you say it was a great race, and it's good, average, and bad. I don't think it's a bad race, but each their own. So please do pop your votes in there. And finally, last time I did one of these, I damaged my PCL. I was in absolute agony. I'm still struggling. Guess what? I've got COVID now, so I will try and find my way through this the best I can. But if I sound horrendous and start choking, it's all good. I might have to leave you with Will for just a minute while I breathe. It's just not been a very good 2 weeks for Sean. Also, as well, there are some things in with the stewards. Apparently, Haas are considering appealing the results at the end there, or the decision to take it from wherever they took it from. Again, we'll get into it. And Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon are under investigation for their collision. And I've not seen many, if anybody, mention this, but if Pierre Gasly is found to be in breach of the sporting code for driving standards, that could be 2 penalty points, and that could be a race ban. So definitely worth keeping an eye on that one. Absolutely chaos. Felt like, how long was the race in the end? Nearly 3 hours, wasn't it? So it was a long one, but I think that was well worth getting up for. I do. I think that was good. Let's say a very good morning. It's an afternoon. We're not quite there yet, mate. Good morning, Will. What did you make of all that one? That was chaos.
It feels like the afternoon, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Yeah. I tell you what, I'm glad we had those last couple of laps because I think I'd be fast asleep otherwise. It was looking like it was going to be one of those slow burners of a race where Verstappen just sails off into the sunset. But that last little bit woke me up, that's for sure.
Yeah, I was just saying in the intro there that it was already tyre management, wasn't it? And then all of a sudden, I don't know, somebody farted in the wrong direction and it all went to absolute chaos. We like a bit of chaos, but I think that might have been a bit too far over the line for a lot of people. We'll run through the order and we'll kind of do the bits we need to about the restarts. If my voice drops out, Will, you might have to just hold for a minute while I choke, so apologies. But yeah, we'll start with Max Verstappen. You've touched on it there. Not a great start, actually. Did fall behind both the Mercedes, behind Russell off the line. Poor George Russell. And then Lewis Hamilton at turn 3. Wasn't happy with Hamilton's move, but stewards didn't see anything in that one. I'm not sure I did really too. It's not like he went slamming into the side and running off track, is it? So I don't think that was really too much in that. But I'm sure we'll have another side-by-side moment between the two of them at some stage. And then he sort of made his way through, past Hamilton, past George Russell, and then I wrote down, where did I write it down? So he overtook, he didn't overtake George Russell, he overtook Lewis Hamilton at turn 9 and pulled out 2 seconds by the end of the same lap. That was it, wasn't he? I won't read the word I used, but he flipped off into the distance after he'd taken that lead. That was pretty much it. And apart from an inside front lockup at the penultimate corner where he went onto the grass and lost sort of 3.5 seconds to Hamilton, it was all looking pretty comfortable for him, wasn't it? Another dominant drive, and I think with Checo a little bit down the order as well, very good day for Max Verstappen. Understatement.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the starts weren't great. I think that was his only real weakness of, I guess you could say, the entire weekend. It was a bit of a scrappy start with the spins in FP1, but then he still topped the session. And yeah, that Red Bull still has the pace, and especially in the straights. I think we knew coming into it with the 4 DRS zones and the way they've got that car optimized, it was going to look powerful on the straights, and it really was today. And even though he may have fell down a little bit at the start, the Mercedes were no match, unfortunately, were they?
No, there was no. Didn't feel like it was going to be a fight because all the action was behind, wasn't it? And it was very close behind, which was great. So if Red Bull are going to disappear with this championship, which a lot of people think they will, then if we've got the close fight we had today through the rest of the field, we're still going to have a very good season. So yeah, it was all good for Verstappen. Looked pretty comfortable, and then obviously the red flags started coming out. I can't remember how many we had. Was it 3 red flags? In 4. The end,
if you count Hulk at the end, they still technically red flagged the session.
Yeah, he stopped on track, didn't he? Right at the end at turn 2. So yes, that's 4 red flags, 3 in the race. I think we'll put it that way. But not happy. I think accepted the first one. Wasn't happy with the next red flag, but you sort of see it from the FIA's, or I do. I sort of see it from the FIA's point of view. If you've got a track covered in, because of Albon's crash, covered in debris and gravel, then bringing out the red flags so you can clear that is important. I think they need to clear that debris. It's a safety concern, isn't it? Maybe the second one, not necessary, but then you look at Magnussen's tyre was all over the track and there's wheel rim there, so I get why they did it. So I see it from their point of view. A lot of people won't be happy with it, but I feel like, and it's not like me to defend them, let's be honest, but I feel like the FIA at the moment, they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't. And I think sometimes you have to. I think Crofty was quite good at it today. I think sometimes you have to take a step back and just go, nah, I get that. I understand why they've done that. I would prefer they just went racing and cleaned it under safety car, but then people would be moaning that we lost 15 laps behind a safety car, wouldn't they? So damned if they do and damned if they don't, which I think is probably how the FIA has been for a long time now.
Yeah, it's a bit like, was it Monza last year?
Yeah.
Where they entered it under safety car and everyone complained, and now they've red flagged it and everyone's complained. It's just another case of you can't make F1 Twitter happy.
No, not at all. Sergio Perez, by the way, while we're on Red Bull, 20th, pit lane, and actually technically 19th because he was ahead of Bottas in the pit lane, but pit lane to P5, promoted to 5th after Sainz's late penalty, got driver of the day as well. Did pit under the first safety car, and then made his way up to 13th place by the end of lap 16. So we had the red flag, of course, as well. 9th by the end of lap 23. Some really nice moves, especially at turn 9 and turn 11. Really enjoyed watching Checo come through. I know he's got a faster car, but it's still great to watch. Eventually got past Norris as well on the run to turn 9 for P8 on lap 43, and then sort of just kept doing what he needed to do. Didn't he get those moves done? Up to P5. Big points, actually, from the back of the grid on a track that's not easy to overtake on. Verstappen went 15th to P2 in Jeddah. Checo pit lane to P5, I think is an equally impressive drive. I love it. I think Jensen Button said it in commentary. I love it when Sergio Perez is in that position where he's got to fight back, because he will fight back.
Yeah, he will. And I don't know whether it was just you, but or maybe it was just me being half asleep. But I kept feeling like Perez made loads of overtakes, but never got any further closer to the front of the field. That might just have been me, but it was exciting to see. I would have liked if he had a slightly less powerful DRS, and he would have had to work a little bit harder for them. But no, we got some cracking moves nonetheless. There was one, and I cannot remember who it was on for the life of me, around the outside of turn 9, which we saw the F3 cars doing, which was absolutely stunning. So fair play to Checo. He smashed it today, and I don't know who got driver of the day, but he's up there. Yeah, okay, there you go. And I would say he'd be my candidate for that as well.
I mean, we've got to consider as well, lots of red flags, lots of safety cars, so that's helped him out. But still, I mean, he's come through. Just back to your point now, I sort of agree, and I never felt like, in Jeddah, I still felt like Verstappen could win from 15th. I didn't feel like Perez was going to make the podium today at any point, and I'm not tearing Checo down for that at all. I didn't feel like he was ever going to be there. So I think P5, good recovery. In fact, people sort of pointing in chat, safety car, red flags did help. But, I'm not going to use the line. I'm not going to say it about luck. You know what I'm going to say. But, he's taken advantage of it. He's where he is. I think solid result. I just complaint from Verstappen about cold tyres, the safety car not going fast enough at the start, or the safety car not going fast enough around the lap. It was a weird day, wasn't it, for tyres? But then hard tyre, difficult to heat up anyway at the best of times, isn't it, on a track that... It was quite a warm track, but there wasn't a lot of grip. It was quite weird circumstances, but the safety car, and I've said this before, it's got to go at a speed that is safe. That's why it's called the safety car. And I feel like the safety car could do 180 miles an hour and the drivers will still want it to 190. So I think he's doing the best he can, is Burt Mylander, but I get it from a driver's perspective. But great drive from Red Bull. Both the Red Bulls, great start to the season. The only thing I think that stopped Verstappen having 3 poles and 3 wins is that drive shaft. In Jeddah, I think he would have had the pole easily in Jeddah and would have gone on to win the race. So we're only 3 races in, mate. 4 weeks till the next race, which is a joke. I'm livid. How can we leave it after that for 4 weeks? 4 weeks till the next race. Long way to go, but looks quite ominous, doesn't it, at the moment?
It really does. It really does. I think today was probably the closest the field have come to maybe challenging. And I was sort of sat there kind of hoping, and just to clarify, because I know there'll be comments. I after Ricciardo's gone, I am now pretty much a neutral fan. But I was sat there hoping with that restart, we might just have the only non-Red Bull win of the season now. If Verstappen has a bad start and maybe a Merc or Alonso can have a blinder off the line, but obviously that all went to pot about 100 meters later. So yeah, but I mean, fair play to Red Bull at the end of the day. They've built a cracker of a car. Aerodynamically it is phenomenal, and the way they've set it up for both Jeddah and Australia, in terms of how DRS works and their straight line speed, has been, miles ahead of everybody else. And they've made them look like amateurs almost. So fair play to Red Bull. They deserve the success. I'm just hoping now that these upgrades for the rest of the grid come in soon and we can see a slightly closer fight for the lead.
Yeah, there is some controversy on social media. Max Verstappen, some people saying he's outside his grid box and should get a penalty. From the shots I've seen, his wheels are on the line. And if his wheels are on the line, then that's fine. Same as track limits. If you can go as far out wide as you want, so long as you keep a part of your wheel on the white line, you are still on track limits. And that's the shots I've seen. I think Crofty said it in the Sky coverage afterwards, that the wheel is on the line, and so that is within the grid box. So I don't think there's any controversy thing. I think some people are clutching at straws there. Just on your point as well, just to make this, because I need to say this. don't get mad at Red Bull for dominating the sport. And I'm saying this because I said it for Mercedes as well. When Mercedes was dominating and people were moaning and saying, oh, they're destroying the sport. Red Bull are not going to destroy the sport if they win every race this year. Your complaint needs to be with Mercedes, Ferrari, and to a lesser extent, Aston Martin. I'm not going to give them too much grief. They've made such a leap forward this year. But certainly Mercedes and Ferrari for not building a car capable of challenging Red Bull. It's not Red Bull's fault that Mercedes and Ferrari haven't got a car that's as good as theirs. So you shouldn't be aiming your hate at anybody, and you shouldn't be hurling abuse at anybody. But if you're a bit peed off at Red Bull, don't be. That should be aimed at the teams who can't build a car capable of challenging. And if you think that's me, they didn't cheat. Don't be bloody ridiculous. For goodness, do you know, I could go off on one. I could go off on one so easily. People need to read rules. It's not difficult. They're all there. What was I saying, Will? Yeah, I said it about Mercedes, so I need to say it about Red Bull as well, because I always said about Mercedes, don't get mad at Mercedes for dominating. You need to criticise Red Bull and Ferrari for not building a car capable of challenging. So that's my point on that one. I've not got much more to add other than repeating the same thing again, but great race from both the Red Bulls, really. Do you think if we had I'll throw this at you then quickly, Will, before we roll on. Do you think without red flags today, Sergio Perez finishes that high? And that's maybe an obvious answer to that, but where do you think he would have been?
That's a good question. He would have got maybe top 5 at a push. You know, the red flags obviously helped a fair bit. And obviously, as you get further up the grid, the cars get quicker and they get harder to overtake, especially around a circuit like Albert Park. So I'm going to say, where did he actually finish? I can't remember, but fifth. Yeah, so yeah, maybe 6th, 7th. I don't think he'd be as far away as where he ended in the end. So yeah, let's go 7th. Yeah, let's put it 7th without the red flags. But I don't think they helped him out massively. Just get past the Alpines.
I know it's a bit of a silly question because none of that happened in the end, did it? We did have the red flags, but I was just wondering. Yeah, he only had the pace to score points today. Mercedes, Lewis, like I say, as always, we'll run through the order. I'll struggle through it, and then we'll take your questions later if we've missed anything that you want us to go over. Lewis Hamilton, P2 today. What a weekend for Mercedes. Who saw that one coming? I certainly didn't. P2 and 3 on the grid. Russell second, Hamilton third at the start of the race. Good drive from Hamilton. Perhaps a little bit fortunate, like Checo, with red flags and things, that he got to change his tyres. Same with Verstappen, of course. Got to change his tyres. Because I don't think officially Verstappen pitted, did he? And neither did Hamilton or Alonso officially. No, they didn't. So got fortunate with that in the sense that Russell pitted, which promoted Hamilton up a position. But I will say this, Hamilton was right on the back of George, wasn't he? So I think Hamilton looked, at least at that stage of the race, like he had the pace to be P2 without any kind of chaos as well. So really good drive. I'm just surprised to see them up there, and I'm pleased to see them up there because that gave us some real intrigue with the starts. The Mercedes kept it interesting by beating Verstappen off the line. They gave us that interesting and exciting stuff early on, and then we had Can Alonso close down Hamilton. That was one for the ages. Hamilton versus Alonso in Albert Park for a podium was great fun to watch. Never really came to what we wanted it to in the end. It would have been great to see them side by side a few times, but really surprised to see him up there. Really, really surprised. And George Russell, oh, George. I mean, he couldn't have got any more unlucky today, could he? Pitted, perfect decision by Mercedes under that first safety car. Even said over the radio, it's not your fault, guys. It was a good call. Red flag came out pretty much more or less immediately after that. That meant everyone could change their tyres, which cost him positions. He started to race quite nicely, coming back through the field, and then bang. His power unit goes pop. Some speculation there was a leak, but Mercedes said it was just a power unit failure, not a leak. So just rotten luck for George, because it looked today like the pace was there for a Mercedes at least 2-3. And with the early stop under the safety car, the advantage that gave George, maybe he could have threatened Max for the win, he says, with a lot of doubt in his voice.
I think that's a good point, though, because that strategy call for Mercedes, at the time it was inspired until obviously it wasn't. But yeah, I think he could have taken the win. I feel like Max was too quick, and I don't think we saw the full pace from Max. He was sat there having a Sunday drive, I think, today. But definitely a 2-3. Definitely a 2-3. And The only person I think he was more unlucky was maybe Ollie Behrman and F2. If anyone was awake and stupid enough like me to actually stay up and watch that one. Yeah, it just such a shame, really. But this weekend is going to be a positive for Mercedes on the whole because they seem to make a massive leap forward. So fingers crossed we can see that. Plus the new upgrades take them just that little bit closer to Red Bull at the front.
Yeah, it's a little bit of caution, obviously, for Mercedes fans out there. It could be track specific, but this is kind of what I expected after the first race in Bahrain, that we'd see, Red Bull, if everything goes their way, no problems, they'll go off and probably win the race. And then behind, you've got a really close fight between Mercedes and Aston Martin. So that's what we expected today. And I mean, Hamilton did a great job to keep Alonso just out of DRS range, because I think if Alonso gets within DRS range, then we've got the fight that Hamilton didn't want to really have with the tyres. He was concerned about the tyres, of course, but it was sort of at one point, I think, was just over a second, and it was very close as Alonso tried to push, but I think he just had enough, Hamilton and Mercedes today. And, he seems so happy as well over team radio, and I'm not being critical of him or anything like that, because of course his standards are high, but when he was winning races and championships year in year out, I don't think I ever heard him that happy about second place. So I think probably part of that could well be an element of surprise from Mercedes and Hamilton. Hang on a minute, because after qualifying, what was it George Russell said? I thought we were supposed to be a second a lap slower. I feel like Verstappen could have pushed it more today and probably shown they are still a second a lap slower, but really happy for Mercedes, and it's us fans that are going to benefit. Like I said earlier, if Red Bull disappear with this championship and we get Mercedes versus Aston with a bit of Ferrari thrown in, and as we saw today with Alpine having some good pace, we can have such a good season in behind that championship fight. If it is a championship fight, we'll get onto that later, I'm sure. But great stuff from Mercedes this weekend. Really, again, for the third or fourth time, just surprised to see them up there. I think Hamilton now to fourth in the championship, 38 points, and Mercedes stay P3 and fall away from Aston, but absolutely fantastic for Mercedes this weekend, up until George Russell's DNF. I feel for him, because that red flag really did screw him over, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. But, I guess you can take the solace out of it that it wouldn't have mattered anyway. That engine was always going to blow up. So Merck, if anything, gambled on the right driver. Can you imagine if they brought Hamilton in and then he'd been screwed, and then Russell was still in the lead and then retired from the lead? So it could have been a lot worse. That's the positive side I'm trying to take out of it.
Fernando Alonso P3, Lance Stroll P4 for Aston Martin. Really good points haul for them today. Alonso on the podium again, third, and third. It's a hat-trick of 3, so well done to Fernando. Sean's writing that down, ready for his tyre talk for the preview. Spoiler alert, that's that sorted for the next one. So, yeah, like I say, kind of touched it with Hamilton, kept pushing Lewis, but didn't quite get within that DRS range. But this kind of brings us on to which one was it? The third start? The second restart? The third start of the race? We had all that chaos right at the end with the red flag. So the red flag came out we'll talk about Magnussen later, a bizarre moment for Magnussen. That brought out the red flag. We then had a restart. Fernando Alonso into turn 1, P3. Not a bad start at all, I thought, actually. And then got hit by Sainz. That spun him round. He tagged the wall, so that could have been a lot worse for him. We then had all the chaos in behind with the Alpines colliding and whatever else was going on. I think De Vries and Sargent came together as well. Absolute chaos. Lance Stroll up to third place. Locks up and goes straight on in turn 3. You're going, Lance, what you doing? Fernando straight on the radio. Come on, we need to count back like we did Silverstone. We can't have this. This is robbed us. A lot of people thought it wasn't fair. Eventually the FIA, after what felt like an eternity, and an eternity because you're listening to commentary trying to second guess it, and they don't really know, and you don't really know, and the only people that know are the FIA, and they may not really know. So it's all a bit chaotic and confusing, but in the end, they decided to do the count back and put things back as they were. I think that's fair, because, well, by the rules, they hadn't completed the first sector, so they'd not got an order. which is basically what had happened there. So they have to then go back to the order before the restart happened, because otherwise you're just guessing, and you can't just guess. Some talk about maybe moving it to mini sectors in the future. As I said on Sky, though, the problem is then which mini sector do you take it from? It's all very confusing. So kind of not a get out of jail free card for Aston, because it wasn't Alonso's fault that he was hit by Sainz, but potentially a bit of fortune there. Just a bit of good luck smiling on Aston and Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll today with that decision. What are your thoughts on all that? Because it was all a little bit chaotic, but at the same time, again, I'm not defending the FIA as such, but if you've ever looked through the regulations, they are long-winded.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it was consistent, wasn't it? The only time we've seen, at least in recent memory, that we've seen a case like this since the new red flag rules came in was Silverstone last year after Zhou's accident on the first lap. And yes, okay, that was at the very start of a race, not a red flag restart, but they were as consistent as they could be. I tell you what, I'm very glad for the state of Twitter that Lewis didn't jump Hamilton into turn one, or Hulkenberg was any higher up than fourth. Otherwise, I think we would be in quite a lot of controversy at the moment. But yeah, I mean, I can just see with Matty's return as well, it was all going to kick off. But yeah, I think the FIA made the right call in that regard. Whether it's the right thing long term is another matter. I like the mini sectors edition. I mean, we knew what the order was because we had a timing tower. So it wasn't a case of, oh, we don't know the order. It's just a case of they've got to pass a certain sector. I don't know why that rule's there. So they could tweak it, but in the state that we have with the rules as they are now, then they made the right decision, which is a rare thing to say for the FIA, isn't it?
yeah, they followed the rules. Everything was done by the book. The thing is as well, it's a rule that I don't think will get tweaked because it's not happening all the time, is it? It's a freak incident. Quite often things like that result in a safety car rather than a red flag. I do wonder if maybe the red flag was thrown because it was so late in the race rather than for any other reason, although they said it was for debris, so maybe not. But I don't think that'll get changed. It's fine. They've got to go through, I think Annette said it, you've got to go through a timing beam for it to be an official order. But I see people say Mickey said why not use the GPS data. That's one thing I would say is we've got enough technology now. Obviously, I know the point you're making. Well, you can't rely on the timing tower because it has its moments, but I know exactly what you mean. There was an order. We knew the order because, in fact, I'll tell you the order. I think I screenshotted it on the final red flag, as I've named it. So we were Verstappen, Hamilton, Sainz, Hulkenberg, Tsunoda, Norris, Piastri, Zhou, Bottas, Perez, Alonso, and Stroll. So we had an order on the official timing, but they've got to go through in race conditions and actual timing beams. So that's how I understand it. I might be wrong. I've not had the chance to read the regulations yet. They're long-winded. I'll have a read tonight. I promise. I won't. But yeah, like I say, they've got a little bit. I don't want to say I said fortunate, but it's not fortunate because the FIA have followed the rules. But and I think it was mentioned in chat there as well from Redmond, Fernando Alonso instantly knowing what happened at Silverstone. That's the kind of driver for that. That's what experience buys you in Formula One. That's a guy who is always thinking. Schumacher used to be always thinking. I feel Hamilton thinking a lot. I think Verstappen's matured. He's thinking a lot. And as you get more experienced, and you don't get more experience than Fernando Alonso right now, then you're always on top of it. So I love that he's just like, right, hang on. You need to talk to the FIA. This is what happened at Silverstone. We have to sort this out. Yeah, it's good stuff. Lance Stroll, by the way, contact with Charles Leclerc at turn 3. Nowhere really for Stroll to go. I call that a first lap racing incident. I know it's going to feel like it was about 7 million years ago, Will, that first lap incident between Leclerc and Stroll. But do you think the steward was right not to investigate that? Because Stroll can't really just evaporate. I'll say the same about Ocon as well, by the way, when we get to that point. He can't just evaporate, can he? So
yeah, people who've seen my videos know that I'm a big fan of Lance Stroll, but no, I mean he didn't do anything wrong this time round. Just proves again that Aston is pretty robust. I don't know how many hits it's taken over the course of the year. Now there was a few in Bahrain, another one or two here, and it's managed to survive. Yeah, Yeah, but as you said, there was nowhere really for Stroll to go. Definitely a racing incident. I'm not sure what happened to him on the final restart. That was a bit weird. I don't know whether he had a puncture or whether he just missed his braking zone. If it was the latter, then that one is his fault when he just went straight on. But yeah, poor for Leclerc. Not much you could really do about it in the end. Just one of those first lap incidents, and we see it almost every year at that corner. Someone going backwards into the gravel. So what can you do?
Yes, I mean, Stroll will have breathed a sigh of relief, won't he? When that was all reinstated, having effectively thrown that podium chance away. Very weird. Very, very weird. It was, like I said, it was all very confusing. The FIA followed the rules. All good. So that's fine. I'm not going to talk too much about changing rules. We could do that another day. But if this was happening all the time, then there needs to be a change. But there's going to come a point where, how can I word this? There's going to come a point where something like that is going to screw over a Verstappen or a Hamilton, and then it's all going to kick off. Not necessarily from the drivers, you know what I'm talking about, Will. You know what's going to kick off.
No, I don't. What do you want to elaborate, Sean?
Not really, no. Don't get me started on F1 Twitter again. Or Sky and their mad obsession this weekend with Abu Dhabi 2021. It's April 2023, guys. Anyway, so quickly, Lando Norris P6, Oscar Piastri P8 in the end, just trying to adjust for Sainz's penalty. I mean, wow. I think both drivers, Lando Norris, really good racing today. Did get to stop under that red flag. Did a really good job, I thought, to keep Perez behind for as long as he did. Eventually, Perez obviously got through, made a very nice, aggressive move on Hulkenberg at the inside of T12 with some good traction off T11. Nice little switchback move. Nice and racy. Good pace from McLaren. They go from 0 points and bottom of the championship to, I think, up to 5th in the standings now. So it just goes to show, no matter how much you're struggling in a car or how difficult your start to the season is, particularly this early on, one chaotic race or one really good result, and it all just completely flips around. And Oscar Piastri points at his home Grand Prix. First F1 points at his home Grand Prix. 4 points on the board. It was quite an eventful race for Piastri. Did have contact with Tsunoda at turn 1 on lap 15. Struggled to get past Tsunoda. I did right here. Straight line speed didn't seem great. Eventually did overtake Tsunoda around the outside on the run to turn 9 and pitted on the safety car 3 for soft tyres. Didn't cost him, though, because I think he had about an 18-second gap to the car behind, so it was worth doing that, and then the red flag came out anyway. But fantastic result for McLaren, and some massive points, especially with Alpine. It all going wrong for Alpine in the end. So if they're going to be in a fight with Alpine later in the season, this could be one of those days where it turns out to be quite critical. 12 points on the board now for them. I mean, what a turnaround, like I say.
Yeah, this, I think, will still be raising alarm bells, though, for McLaren, because Australia has typically been quite a good track for them. If you think back to last year, they struggled early on in Bahrain and then came good. I think for the first time, I think it was either 5 and 6 or 6 and 7 for Norris and Ricciardo last year, off the top of my head. So given their qualifying effort, they're still going to be a little bit worried. Obviously, they benefited today, and they need to take those points. And yeah, great for Piastri, as you said. That's really nice to see. But I think there's still going to be some alarm bells ringing for later on the season, and they're going to need a few more crazy races if they want to get anywhere near the points that they got even last year.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I was just going to add, actually, that this, we have to, a bit like I said with Mercedes, this could be, they looked a bit quicker this weekend. That could be because of the track. Obviously got lucky with all the chaos around them, but we'll see when we get to Baku where they are exactly. Although I say Baku can be quite chaotic as well. So it might take a while to find out where people are. But this isn't that they haven't turned up this weekend and been, 1, 2, 3, 4th fastest on merit, have they? That's not what's happened today. But it's points on the board during a time when they're struggling with their car, and that's where those points are often what can be quite critical in a close fight. So if they do get the car sorted and they do push on and start being competitive with your Alpines and co for best of the rest behind the top 3 teams, then or 4 teams, isn't it, really? Yeah, it depends if we'll get to Ferrari later. I don't know where they are, but yeah, behind the top 3 or 4 teams, then these points could be quite important. So I'm happy for McLaren. I think both drivers did well today. Like I said, relatively clean. Piastri was tapped by Tsunoda, but that's not really his fault. And there was no investigation, by the way, on that one either. So all good. Just going to check the FIA page. So I'd say breaking news, but it's not really. A team representative is required to report to the stewards at 7:30 local time in relation to the incident below, and that is Haas protesting the submitted a protest regarding the provisional classification of the Australian Grand Prix. So they're protesting it. Ted Kravitz said after the race he doesn't think they'll be very lucky with it. Haas's general feeling was they're going to give it a go. It's worth a go because it puts Hulkenberg up to 4th place. So they've got to try it, haven't they? If you're Haas, you totally understand why they're trying that, but probably won't get very far. And we'll save the Sainz summons or the Sainz penalty for a little bit later. We'll go over that one then. But yeah, great stuff from McLaren. I'll keep an eye on Haas. It might take a little bit of time, but I don't expect too much to come of it. But good weekend for McLaren. Good stuff from Lando Norris. Good stuff from Oscar Piastri. And some smiles for a change. Because it has been a difficult start. And I want to address something, actually. Somebody said to me in the interesting note you think in chat, and you as well, Will. Somebody asked me in the preview comments on Thursday, not should McLaren write this season off, but is it a viable strategy for McLaren if this car doesn't improve and there's nothing they can do to turn it around? Is it a viable strategy with the wind tunnel coming in June to maybe put most of their focus on next year already? My response to that is yes, it's a very viable one, but these guys are racers. They don't want to finish last. They're not good at the moment, but they don't want to be down the back end of the grid. But with all the things like wind tunnel time, CFD time, all of that, it's a very viable strategy. I just don't imagine McLaren are the kind of team that would, like a Haas, give up on a season or most of a season. They want to be constantly making gains, don't they?
Yeah, you've got to remember as well that they've got this new wind tunnel coming open at the end of the year, or it's even midway through the year, and they're going to have to calibrate that. Yeah, they're going to have to calibrate that. Now, I'm having to take a few leaps here from my what's quickly diminishing engineering degree knowledge. It's been a year now since I graduated, and I'm retaining little bits here and there, but you're going to want to keep that car in development to have some data to compare it to, and yet still get some meaningful data with that new wind tunnel when it first comes online, if that makes any sense. I'm McLaren in a bit of a difficult boat. If this had happened any other year, I would have said, yeah, okay, do what Haas did in 2021 and sack this year off and focus on a brand new concept, which will probably end up looking quite suspiciously like a Red Bull for 2024. But given they've got this new wind tunnel, I'm not sure whether they can even afford to do that.
I think we're going to have 20 Red Bulls out there next year. Because clearly they're the ones that have gone the right way, haven't they?
I kind of won't complain. If it's close racing, I don't particularly mind.
Well, that's it, isn't it? And Aston have kind of gone the Red Bull way, and it's worked out for them. And I think that's something I want to say, because a lot of people talk about how these regulations haven't worked. But they have. Not for everybody, but Aston Martin have proven that the CFD time, the opportunities with development that gives them has helped them. I think people are looking at it, seeing Red Bull dominate and going, the rules haven't worked, but actually they have, because Aston have gone from 8th to 2nd or 3rd fastest and 3 podiums on the bounce. They've not worked as well as I think a lot of people wanted them to, but to say they haven't worked at all is not true at all. So that was all. Just wanted to say that. Don't hate me, but there you go. I'd love to see 9 teams make a leap forward like that. And we'll have every weekend 10 teams, 20 drivers fighting for the win. But 1, that's not Formula One, and 2, that's just never going to happen. You don't even see that in things like Formula E, do you? Which is more... Formula E is not a spec series, but they've got a lot of spec aero and things like that. And
they've got 10 teams in Neo, basically.
Yeah, and you don't... F2 is a spec series, but we don't have every driver challenging for a win every weekend. It's just not going to happen. So... Kevin Magnussen, no, Nico Hulkenberg, P7. Haas hoping P4. We shall see. Red flag stop very nearly. Did you see the onboard wheel? Very nearly collected Albon after that accident for Alex at turn 6. Very close. Worryingly close.
It was a weekend of close calls for Nico, wasn't it? Because he nearly put Perez in the wall in FP3 or FP1. Then he had the incident with Hamilton in qualifying, and now this one maybe being the one that wasn't his fault, but he was on one this weekend, especially with his defensive driving, and it's nice to see Hulk back. And I think I've not seen Hulk that fired up for a while. I don't remember him being that aggressive on the defending when he was back with Renault. So I don't know where that's come from, but it's working, and he seems to have the teammate battle playing in his favour at the moment with K-Mag. K-Mag obviously today with that incident, I'm sure we'll touch on that later, but it was great for Hulkenberg and nearly P4, which would have been great, though I think slightly heart-wrenching if it just missed out on a podium again.
Marie in chat making the point actually be P3 for Hulkenberg because of Sainz's penalty.
You're right.
If they were to, I don't think they will, but if they were to reinstate what I've called timing screen under final red flag, if they reinstate that, then that'll put Hulkenberg P3.
Oh my God, Haas's first podium. Wow.
Yeah, Hulkenberg's first podium, finally. It's taken it bloody long enough. Like I said, I don't think they'll be successful in that appeal, or that protest, but if you're Haas and there's potential for a podium, you've got to try it. Oh, yeah. Great pace from Hulkenberg all weekend, actually, certainly at qualifying as well. Use that pace to stay in the DRS of Sergio Perez for a few laps after Checo had passed him. Did make a late move to defend from Lando Norris on the run to turn 11. Norris wasn't totally happy about that. It was late, but Norris got him in the end anyway, so stewards probably didn't look at that one. Good fun. I really enjoyed that fight between the two of them. And as you said earlier, Will stopped on track after the race finished at turn 2, bringing out the red flag. Kevin Magnussen pitted under the second safety car. Really nice aggressive move. Quite a late one on Zhou Guanyu at turn 11 on lap 36 for I think P12. Ended up with a right rear puncture because he went wide-ish. He wasn't even, weird. He wasn't like he was drifting massively wide, was it? He's just sort of just gone and clouted the wall with his right rear. Tyre carcass comes flying off, wheel rim debris everywhere, and game over. Such a bizarre incident. I've just put wandered wide and hit the wall because I'm not really sure what's happened there, and I've not had a press release from Haas yet. I mean, I'll have a quick look and see if they've said anything, but a bizarre incident that brought out another red flag, Will.
Yeah, I think it really was just unlucky. I think any other lap, had he done that and hit the wall at a slightly different angle, a slightly different point, he would have just glanced the wall and that would have been it. But it just so seemed to catch the tyre at a specific angle that ripped it off the rim, and there you go. But as obviously disappointing as that was for K-Mag, I don't think he was running in the points anyway, and that gave us all of our discussion points for the rest of the day. So I can't really moan about it.
Yeah, thanks, K-Mag. Thanks for making those last few laps a bit more interesting. Just trying to see. No quotes from K-Mag for one reason or another, but Hulkenberg said it was a wild and a bit messy at times. I'll have to look through everything that happened as there were a lot of things happening. I'm refreshed in a very positive mindset and really enjoy working with the team. Which is quite a bizarre quote for an end of race thing.
I wonder if they've deliberately not posted K-Mag's quote. Maybe it wasn't publishable.
Which, good point. Yeah.
I can imagine it. Just beep race and that'll be it. And then that might not look great on a piece of Haas branding.
I was going to say about Hulkenberg again. I don't think it will be overturned, the result, but even if it isn't, P7, it's a really good result. Like I said, they've had a good weekend. They're right in the mix with those around them as well, which is good. They're not cut adrift. They're not falling away. Hopefully they'll develop this car more than they did last year. But P7, is that 6 points on the board? Yeah, 6 points. It's good stuff from Haas. So happy for them. Kevin Magnussen, like I say, wasn't in the points. It was up into about 12th place, I think. So maybe could have challenged those ahead. I've not got a screen grab or anything from where he was prior to that. So I don't know how close he was to those around him, but not a bad weekend for Haas in the end. Zhou Guanyu P9 and Valtteri Bottas P11. I didn't write. I was thinking earlier, but before the race. I lied to you. It was last night, actually. It doesn't matter when. I was just thinking in general. Really weird start to the season for Bottas. He picked up points in the first race, didn't he? And then it's sort of not been particularly brilliant. I'm just going to check and make sure he didn't win in Saudi Arabia or something before I say it. But not been win. Where are we? Where's my list? But I guess my point is he's not kind of hit a rhythm like he did last year quite so well for one reason or another. Where is he? Yeah, so 8th place in Bahrain, then 18th and 11th. So not 100% sure what is going on there with Valtteri Bottas. But Zhou Guanyu, a couple of points on the board, pitted on the first safety car. Did have a slow stop under the third safety car, but then the red flag came out anyway. So promoted to 9th after Sainz's penalty. So would have got a point then, even without Sainz's penalty. So good stuff from Zhou and Alfa Romeo today. I've not got much on them, which makes me feel dreadful because I know I've got some Alfa Romeo fans that subscribe to the channel and don't think I give them enough love. But it's very I find it very difficult, Will, to cover teams like Alfa Romeo and Haas and Williams and that sometimes because we don't see masses of them, and I have to go off press releases, really. So, Zhou said, P9 at the checker flag is a good result, especially considering where we started and the challenging weekend we had. Positives to take, had a really good start, which is something that they worked really hard on. Didn't do any mistakes in a race where there are plenty of spills. We kept it clean, kept out of trouble, and I was able to keep the pressure on Magnussen in the latter stages, which in the end allowed us to get points. Conditions were difficult out there. Track temperatures were really low, but we didn't do mistakes, and that is what matters. Bottas says happy for Zhou and the team to come back with 2 points from what can only be described as a chaotic race. I think you're right, Valtteri. I'll let you have that one. My afternoon had been quite lonely and without much action until it all kicked off towards the end. We decided to take a risk at the start. I pitted for hard tyres on lap 1, so he was one of those to pit early on, so that's where it cost him. Plan was to keep those tyres the whole race, but then the red flag meant I couldn't get much of an advantage from that. Safety car came out later on, went for softs, but yet again the red flag messed up with my strategy. So it looks like Bottas has just had a day where he and the team have made some good calls when the safety cars come out, and then a red flag shafted him every single time. Poor Valtteri.
Yeah, Valtteri, he's had a bit of a weird year. I don't think he's fully clicked with that new Alfa Romeo yet. And Zhou seems to have had the measure of him. He didn't have a particularly great race in Saudi Arabia either. Bahrain, I don't remember him being particularly special on that one. So, yeah, just a bit of an odd one for Valtteri. He's not doing, and this is a good circuit for him as well. He likes Australia, so seeing him, especially in qualifying, quite low down, shocked me a little bit. I'm hoping he can sort of pull it back. Is he contracted to Alfa for next year, or is this the last year of his contract? I can't remember.
I have a look, but I think we were told multi-year, so that could be.
Yeah, part of me is telling me that this is his last year and he's trying to get a deal sorted early. And I wonder again, is this a case? If that's true, is this a case of Bottas is in the last year of his contract and we're seeing the typical Bottasisms that we've seen back when he was at Mercedes in that situation, just that almost panic slowly creeping in. If Bottas is settled, then he's a great driver, but as soon as he gets rumbled slightly, he sort of loses that. So yeah, just an odd start. I think he's one to sort of keep an eye on over the course of 2023, and if he doesn't improve, I dread to say it, but could it well be a case of Zhou and Pourchaire? It's way too early to say this, by the way, way too early, and I'm sure I'm getting stick for it already. But yeah, he's just not impressed me at the start of 2023.
Yeah, like I said, today got unlucky with everything that kind of went on, so we'll see where he is in the coming races. But I personally think, unless he has a catastrophic season and makes loads of mistakes, I don't see why Alfa would move him on. I've had a look. I just got multi-year when it was announced, so that's generally multi-year unless they specify, like with Verstappen or Leclerc or Norris, that it's give us a year. It's usually 2 or 3 years, so I've got a feeling it's another year. But I think Alfa will stick with him till Audi come in properly. and then they might want to make a change. But we'll maybe get together, Will, at some point and do a speculation stream. I do like speculating.
I'll be up for that.
I don't know if anybody notices. I do like a bit of speculation.
I mean, it might have been known to be catastrophically wrong, but I'll show up.
Then we'll be wrong together, mate, because I tell you, mine will be horrifically wrong as well. Although I did a video, a little bit off topic, a few years ago called When Will Max Verstappen Win His First World Championship? Don't want to be smug, but I said 2021, so I do get the odd thing right, is my point. Just saying. Yuki Tsunoda, 10th place on the predictions. My other predictions weren't great, but for the weekend, but I did say Piastri points and I did say Tsunoda points. So there you go. I got something right. Yuki Tsunoda, 10th place. DNF for De Vries in the end. So Yuki, I talked about the move with Piastri, that little bit of contact there. Both were absolutely okay. Seemed to have poor pace later on, and the team confirmed he was managing an issue. I don't know if I've had the press release back from... I have had it from Alpha Tauri. Let's see what they said. Warming up, so they were struggling to get the heat into the tyre compound and into the optimum window, but generally happy. Mixed feelings, but generally happy with P10. So nothing there that suggests what's Jody Egginton saying. Very difficult race for us. Both drivers pushed hard to extract all they could from the package, but we couldn't manage to get the cars moving forward as required. The pace of the car was not there on all compounds, and we struggled with straight line speed. As such, we weren't able to attack nor hold position in some phases of the race. We leave Melbourne with a lot of data to go through and a lot of work ahead of us in order to be the best prepared for Baku. So it sounds like it was, rather than a mechanical issue, sounds like a tyre warm-up thing, unless they come up and say something a little bit later on. But yeah, that's kind of his race. Nick De Vries, another one who got to pit under the red flag. Contact with Ocon at the restart of turn 3. He kind of came across on Ocon, and there was a little bit of contact there. Pitted for Sauce on lap 46 and then was wiped out by Logan Sargent in turn 1 at the final restart. And he has said, has Nick, the racing incident with Logan meant the end of the race for us. So we called it a racing incident with Sargent. We were struggling very much out there today, but we did all we could. I'm going to read that again because I read the wrong thing. Bloody hell. We were struggling very much out there today, but we did well at the beginning on the hard compound. Unfortunately, when the red flag came out, everyone who started on the mediums got a free pit stop to switch to the hard. Also damaged the front wing during the race, so ended up with understeer and graining on the tyres. Goodness me. Yeah, so bit of a mixed... So my takeaway from that then, Will, is Alpha Tauri not happy with the car, not happy with the performance of the car, really not very confident going forward, but they've got a point and they're happy with that. So, I mean, would have been P11 without Sainz's penalty again for Tsunoda, but I feel like a lot of people are going to come down hard on Tsunoda for the start of the season, same with De Vries, but I do feel like that Alpha Tauri is the slowest one out there, that car.
Yeah, it's a bit of a dog, isn't it? I had to be reminded that Alpha Tauri was still in the championship this weekend. They seem to be these extra chicanes they're installing around the circuit, but besides that, they're kind of nowhere. And De Vries has been really disappointing. It's, to be fair, one of my predictions that has strangely so far at least come true, but in that I wasn't particularly excited about him coming in, and I didn't think he was going to be, as much of a hotshot as everyone was saying he was going to be. But yeah, even Yuki's been down there, and I think the car plays a big part in that. It seemed quite difficult to drive, and not great at a time where that team's future seems to be a little bit up in the air.
Yeah, well, Helmut Marko said they're not selling, hasn't he? But as they often say in Formula One, then nothing's confirmed until it's officially denied, or whatever the saying is. So maybe that will change. I think it sounds to me, from what I read from Helmut Marko, like it's more likely they'll drop the Alpha Tauri name and potentially go back to Toro Rosso, because it's not really working from a marketing point of view and the money they're putting into the team. But we shall see. Yeah, De Vries is an interesting one. I think he's not had the best of luck at times, but at the same time, he's not been particularly brilliant. But the car's tough. I'll say that for both drivers, but it's a point on the board. It means that every single team this season has scored points now, so that's good news. That's good news. I like it when we don't have a 0 on that table. Very much like it. Last of the finishers, Ferrari and Carlos Sainz. 26 points from 3 races. No wins, no poles, no podiums. It feels like no hope. Sorry, Ferrari fans. It's absolutely horrendous. Charles Leclerc up at turn 3, like I say, hit by Stroll. Not really anywhere Stroll can go. He's got Fernando Alonso on his outside. He's on his inside. He's got Charles on his outside. He can't evaporate. First lap racing incident for me. I'm just going to cough a second. Hang on. Sorry. And then Carlos Sainz. I will say, got a good start, but was a little bit naughty on Alonso. So to move on the approach to the braking zone at turn 3 and very nearly made contact for what would have been the second time, the first time of 2 in a Grand Prix if that had happened. So I feel like Carlos Sainz maybe had a hand in all of that chaos behind with Stroll and Leclerc. I can imagine Stroll is watching Sainz quite closely at that point, and I don't know. But like I say, Stroll can't evaporate. I don't blame him for the Leclerc thing. But that was a bit cheeky from Carlos. Pitted on the second safety car. Seems super quick as well. He was often quicker than the leader, who, all right, was probably managing tyres, but still very, very quick from him. Nice and racy as well. Did start to fall away a little bit after he made that lovely aggressive move on Gasly at turn 3 on lap 25 for 4th place. And then obviously got the 5-second penalty for hitting Alonso. Said over the radio, paraphrasing a little bit because I was sort of typing as he was speaking, this is unacceptable. They need to wait until after the race and discuss with me. And then I think he said, no. That's you know that's getting put into a meme. You know someone's doing it. It was something along those lines. Yeah.
Careful, people will put that into a meme, what you just done. So
no track limits.
It'll go both ways.
No, that's it. We're releasing that. No track limits. Brilliant. It had nothing to do with track limits, but I don't care. But yeah, not happy over the radio. He felt they should have waited till after the race to talk to him. Is this another case, Will, of the FIA being between a rock and a hard place here? If they were criticised for the late decision on Alonso and then reversing that in Saudi, and now people are criticising them for making the decision on Sainz before the end of the race. It's just one of those rock and hard place things, isn't it, for them?
Well, I think what Sainz did on the restart deserved the penalty. So strangely, as I said earlier, I'm taking the FIA side on this one. I think that honestly, they made the right call, which is a scary sentence to say, I'll be honest, given what we've seen in recent years. But yeah, maybe I'm going senile, I don't know. But I do genuinely think they made the right choice here. I feel like, why should Sainz have to go in and argue it? It's clear as day what happened. You don't need to look at any data. Sainz ran into the back of Alonso. That at the time took him out of a podium position. Put Sainz back up into that podium position. He kind of deserved it. And maybe I'm being harsh there, but the camera angles don't lie. So I don't really see what all the fuss was about, if I'm honest on that one. But that's just my take.
What's weird for me is if that happens on lap 1 of the race, it's probably not a penalty. Although it depends, doesn't it? Because Michael Massey used to say, as race director, that you don't... the consequences of an incident are not taken into account in the penalty decision. So, sorry to bring it up, but Silverstone... it doesn't matter how hard Max Verstappen hits that barrier. They're judging whether Hamilton caused an accident, not what happened after that. And that's kind of what they've got to do with Sainz. But today I feel like if that's lap 1 of the first start, it's probably not a penalty. But then have the FIA, Niels Vitic now, the race director, has he looked at that and the stewards looked at that and gone, he has caused quite a bit of chaos behind. We've got, 4 cars out, 2 in the wall. I'm not saying that De Vries and Sargent was anything to do with Sainz, but it did cause all the chaos in there. I don't know what I'm trying to say, really. I can't really work out how they've come to that decision. Like I say,
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to watch it again, but I personally, even if it was a first lap, he still basically punted Alonso in the rear. And
yeah.
It's not like it's into the braking zone of turn 1. It's coming out of turn 1, which I think is different. Like, if we were heading into a braking zone, fine, but we're actually coming out of a corner where he's hit him. So yeah, I would have given that penalty regardless of what stage of the race it was in, whether it was lap one, whether it was a restart, whether it was mid race. It's if it was maybe 20 meters further up the road or further back up the road, then maybe I give him the benefit of the doubt. But in that case, I feel personally he should have got a penalty. It's why I don't think there should have been a penalty for Stroll. That was going into a braking zone. There was nowhere really where he could go. With the Alonso Sainz case, it didn't seem as clear cut as that. I feel like Sainz could have done something to avoid Alonso, and that incident didn't need to happen.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's not a penalty. Because as soon as it happened, I was like, well, that'll be a penalty. It was like you say, it's quite obvious to me. A couple of people in chat saying he's gone in deep and he's got it wrong. My surprise was a little bit like Carlos Sainz in a way, that with it being so late in the race, that the FIA haven't listened to him first. But so that's the point I'm trying to make. Sorry, I've got a right muddy head today, but that's the point I'm trying to make, is I'm surprised they didn't talk to him. But at the same time, I suppose you could argue that they had the time to really look at that because of the red flag, but also I think you just said it actually. Well, what was there to argue from Sainz's point of view? It's not like someone's up his inside and shoved him into Alonso, was it? It was his mistake. So I don't know. It's just sort of thing. Usually when those things happen late in the race, it's investigated after the race. But maybe it was just so slam dunk, there was no point in doing that. So again, not saying it wasn't a penalty. I think it was. And I controversial opinion, actually think the FIA did a good job today in what was absolute chaos. And take a shot. Sean says something nice about the FIA. You won't get too drunk.
I think at the same time as well, when that penalty was handed out, and I know it's not meant to be about the results of it, but Sainz was in the podium position. So had they decided to keep the order as it was when they came into the pits on that final red flag, Sainz would have got a podium, and then a post-race penalty would have taken him off that podium. And do F1 want that for 2 races in a row? Potentially, well, obviously the Alonso ends up getting reinstated, but I personally, I feel that may have played into the decision as well, to make sure they at least have a correct podium.
So the official documentation says that the FIA determined that car 55 was wholly to blame for the collision. So slam dunk in FIA. That's the FIA saying slam dunk. For avoidance of doubt, we took into account the fact that his collision took place at the first lap of the restart, when by convention the stewards would typically take a more lenient view of incidents. They were looking at it as a start, so they would have been more lenient. However, in this particular case, notwithstanding the fact it was the equivalent of a first lap incident, we considered there was sufficient gap for car 55 to take steps to avoid the collision, and failed to do so. So I don't disagree with any of that, to be honest. I think that's fair. Because it's not Alonso's fault.
Yeah,
Alonso's not done anything, has he? He's just kind of like plodding along, and oh crap.
And it's just bad luck that the way it worked out is that 5-second penalty was particularly costly. But that's the case of the drivers around him in the overall situation of the race. There's nothing neither Sainz nor the FIA can do about that. So what are you going to do?
Yeah, his argument was it wasn't fair because it puts him out of the points, and it's too harsh. But then don't run into Fernando Alonso.
What's the alternative?
Exactly. Yeah, you can't.
Yeah, you can't give it's probably the lightest penalty you could get. What, you're going to get a 0.5 of a second penalty?
Yeah. You're going to drop to 12th, but it just so happens today that we're going to let points go down to 12th place just for you, Carlos. But Ferrari, what a mess. I mean, Leclerc again, not really his fault today. DNF with mechanical issues in Bahrain. The pace was nowhere in Saudi Arabia, really. It's been a shocking start to the year for a team that, and maybe I read it wrong, but for a team that I think there was a little bit of positivity around coming to this season with the arrival of Fred Vasseur and the changes going on behind the scenes, and they're addressing strategy and all of that business. And it turns out that they don't need to worry about strategy because they're not really having the opportunity with Charles, at the very least, to actually execute any strategy because he's not getting anywhere, bless him. His results, he's had a 7th place finish. Carlos Sainz had a 4th, a 6th, and a 12th. I mean, What's going on, Will? I know it's probably a conversation for another day, but bloody hell.
I mean, they mucked up qualifying as well.
Yeah.
If we they still had an opportunity to throw strategy in there with their interesting weather forecast. I saw a tweet saying, I can't remember who it's from, so unfortunately I can't credit them, but they were saying Ferrari, when they've realised they've been looking at the weather for Austria, not Australia, the whole time. And I thought, it's the sort of thing they'd probably do as well, because they're saying, yeah, rain in 4 minutes, clear sky, the sun's come out. Like, yeah, it's I'm lost for words, but I'm equally just not surprised at this point.
No.
Maybe for the sake of everyone, it was maybe Stroll did us all the favour in punting. He helped Leclerc out by punting in the gravel. He sorted his race for him rather than having him go through the embarrassment of being called on the pit wall by Ferrari every 5 minutes. So yeah, just unlucky. And you touched on it earlier, but really not a great start to the season for Ferrari, for a team that have potentially the third fastest car. 26 points is shocking.
I thought you were going to say something else then. I just heard the shh.
Yeah.
That as well.
Yeah. It is. I'm trying to reduce the bad language on my own channel. So I'm doing my best. I think I've managed it for 2 or 3 months now without a single bad word. So I'm doing a good job, but has nothing to do with the fact that my work have also suddenly found my channel at the same time.
Oh,
but
yeah.
you know what I do. So
yeah. Just watch the language.
Yeah. So hey, what we talk? Yeah, Ferrari. Not a great start to the season, and this is going to be a write-off, and it really shouldn't be. I have a sad feeling. I don't really know what they're going to do. They're talking about changing the concept of the car, which feels shocking, given that was arguably the quickest car at stages last year. So again, it comes down to just how great of a job Red Bull have done.
Yeah. Thank you and sorry to Greg. Greg, for your super chat. It's just come up on screen, and apparently it was 32 minutes ago. So sorry, mate, that I've missed that one, but thank you so much for your super chat. Says Piastri getting points at home. Come on, live from turn 1. So again, thank you so much. Massively appreciate your support there with super chat. But also, what a view Greg must have had of that final chaos down at turn 1 in Melbourne. Wow. Not at all jealous. I'll do my YouTuber spiel now, by the way, before we just finish off running through the order. Please do subscribe if you are new to the channel. Lots of content to come. Not for a few days, though, because I think I just need to go and lie down and either reset myself or something. I don't know what is going on with me this last 2 weeks. It's been a shocker. And please do drop a like on the stream as well. 600 watching, 129 likes. We are a little earlier than usual. And by a little earlier, I mean, like, what? 8 hours earlier or something like that. So please do drop a like. Really appreciate that as well. Good stuff. Where do we get to? Well, we've done Ferrari. Again, we'll answer your questions and take your comments on Ferrari and that in a bit, and anything we may have missed or have inevitably missed. Alpine. Here
we go.
Positives. Gasly, bloody superb today up until a certain point. Cracking job to keep Sainz at bay for a while, and then to stay within DRS as well of Carlos Sainz and be not legitimately in a fight for a podium, but in a great position had things kicked off differently to pick up a shock podium. I think Gasly, again, up until that final restart, was absolutely superb today, and it's great to see Alpine have got some good pace in that car. Was racing when he needed to be, like I say, great pace. Esteban Ocon, not bad at all either. Did a decent job of, I think he was in the points as well. In fact, I'm going to just double check and find my order again, Will. I've got 3 of them in my little folder because I don't know which one's which. Ocon was up in 10th place before the final red flag, which didn't end up being the final red flag. It was a penultimate red flag. So he was on for points as well. So decent job. I have got in my notes. Beautiful move around the outside of Piastri at turn 9 on lap 26. I loved seeing the moves in that fast corner. So yeah, great. I mean, great stuff from Alpine until the final restart. I feel a little bit for Gasly because he's not swung his car to the right to defend from his teammate. He's just gone to take his line. But that sympathy kind of disappeared when I saw Karun Chandhok's analysis and Gasly didn't even look in his right-hand mirror. Now, you could argue, why would he be looking in his right-hand mirror at that point of the track? He needs to be looking in his left-hand mirror and ahead of him. But at a chaotic restart in a 2-lap shootout, you'd think there'd be enough experience there. Easy for me to say, sat here, to think, oh, need to keep an eye on that side as well. Because he has just run off the track and rejoined the track. So I'm surprised he wasn't a little bit more aware of what was around him. Ocon, there'll be a lot of people who say Ocon could have slammed the brakes on, but you can't slam the brakes on in that situation because you're just going to get punted up your arse. You'll just cause even more chaos, so you can't do that. Just really gutted for Alpine because that was going to be an absolutely mega result for them. That really, really was. Gasly is in with the stewards for, where's the summons? Well, both of them are going to see the stewards at 18:50 local time, so they should have been there by now, so we should get a decision soon. Alleged breach of the International Sporting Code, which I believe is driving standards. If that's a driving standards thing, I would be very surprised if they decide that Gaz is at fault, that he doesn't get at least 2 points for that, and that is a race ban.
Oh.
He's on 10.
It's going to be interesting, isn't it? This opens up another kettle of fish now, doesn't it? My view on the incident, I'm just going to echo what you said. Gasly's got the experience to be looking in both mirrors. And again, we can say that sitting at our microphones, having never driven a Formula One car before, but you're in what is already a chaotic restart. You're rejoining the track. Come on, and Ocon, it was wrong place, wrong time. There was nothing he could have done. Again, if he braked, he would have been round by somebody else. So he was in the wall. I think fair play, honestly, to Otmar Safnauer, who Sky pulled up as it happened, pretty much, and Otmar was able to stay incredibly calm and collected on the broadcast. I mean, yeah, fair play. I've just seen Granny Annie saying, get Danny in at the Alpine. I was thinking that as I saw it. And I know they'll put Doohan in the car, most likely. If he does get that license. Potentially. Where he finished second or third, did he, in the championship last year in F2? I think he must have enough points for a super license now, surely. I'd love to see Ricciardo in the Alpine, though. It won't happen, but it'd be a nice route back for him.
So you need 40 points for a super license, I believe, and apparently Jack Doohan has 126. No, that can't be right. No, hang on, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing. That's the championship position for last year. He's not 126. Ignore me. I'm not really sure. I'm trying to find a list of where they are.
How many Winter Series has he been competing in?
All of them, twice. I'm not sure what he's got. If anyone knows in chat, rather than me erring for 20 minutes looking for it, please do let me know. But or just simply, has he got enough for a super license is the question, I guess.
Does he have the distance travel in a Formula One car is the other maybe the bigger thing, because I don't know how many tests he's had and I can't think of any in particular. He might have done one when they tested out a bunch of drivers back at the end of 2022 when they were trying to source Piastri's replacement. But yeah, that's going to be what could be actually quite a hot seat, because the Alpine looked pretty good this weekend. They seem to look great in practice and then fade out as you get throughout the weekend, but they look pretty quick and we're on for some really good points before obviously it all went wrong.
I suppose there's also an argument to be had, potentially, for what if Mercedes do a little bit of a deal with Alpine and get Mick Schumacher in there if Gasly gets a ban. He ticks all the boxes for super license, and that he was apparently in consideration.
They like him as well.
Yeah.
Laurent Rossi, or whatever it was, is a big fan of Mick Schumacher, and that's another thing I would like to see. So, there'll be no complaints from me on that one.
Pure speculation, of course. The FIA might turn around and give him 1 point. We'll see, but I'd be surprised if it's not 2. If they find him at fault for that. And it's not as cut and dry as a science one, this one, is it? Because there could be an argument for Ocon getting out of it. I don't necessarily take that position. I think if you have to blame somebody for that, it's on Gasly. For me, more so because he's rejoined the track after running off. And I think he should be keeping an eye in every direct. And that sounds so easy, like you say, Will, sat here in our chairs in front of these microphones talking about it as fans. But in that situation, you should be keeping your eye on everything. Or at the very least, sticking your car in the middle of the track, just in case. But we'll see. I'll keep an eye on it. If we get anything before we end the stream, then I will let you know. But don't expect me to be going live later if anything comes out, because I'm nearly done now with the old voice, so I'm clinging on in there. What have we got?
Yeah,
go on, then, Will.
I was to say, given the timings that we have to deal with, us European fans, we get it so hard, don't we?
That sarcasm, please.
Yeah. To be fair, I got for the F3 and F2, and it genuinely made me quite ill yesterday. So I'm just glad I'm here, to be honest.
Well, I've got COVID, mate, so I'm slowly...
Yeah, you beat me regardless, don't you?
Yeah.
So...
I'm fine getting up. I love the early races. I'm kind of gutted that we've only got one left this year, which will be Japan, to be honest. So I like them. I like having, usually, the rest of the day. And by the rest of my day, I mean I just fall asleep on a sofa, usually, in front of the football. But anyway, Logan Sargent, DNF, Alex Albon, DNF. Of course, Williams, the last ones we're going to go through today, I believe. Not really much to say. Alex Albon, a few people speculating that maybe he had a problem on the car. I'll have a look at the press release, see if there's anything in there. But dropped it into turn 6, didn't he? Had a bit of a spin. Understatement. Straight off and into the wall. Nothing he could do after he'd lost it. That was it. That brought out the first red flag of 3 million of the day. Really quite a nasty accident, actually. Like I say, kind of came back across a little bit onto the track, and Hulkenberg only just narrowly avoided him, so it could have been much worse. But Albon said, still looking at the data, but there was nothing unusual in the corner itself. When I lost the car, I was going through slower than in the previous lap. I went wide on the corner before and spiked the tyre temperatures, losing grip and going into the next corner a bit hot. So I think that is what's happened, but we need to look at it. With all the accidents, it was a great opportunity to score points this weekend, so I'm very sorry to the team. So Alex Albon saying there that they're checking to see if it was an issue, but it could be that he went wide, spiked his tyre temperatures, and then he's lost it going in too hot. So driver error, I guess. And Logan Sargent said the race in general just didn't quite fall our way. Really tricky day. Pitted to the medium tyre following the first safety car. It was just a tyre to be on today. Really struggled with it. Just wasn't the tyre, sorry, to be on. Really struggled with it. Once we got to the hard tyre, the pace wasn't too bad, so... to end it like that is unfortunate. Tried to take some chances today and it just didn't pay off. Dave Robson. So Dave Robson said, unfortunately touching the curb at high speed at turn 5 led to a small snap and a spike in tyre temperature, which led him to lose the car at the next corner. So he's saying that that's driver error rather than mechanical. But they'll check it and see where they are. But I've not got much to add on Williams today, so...
Besides a missed opportunity, I guess, with Albon, well, after a really good qualifying session. Sorry, just really quickly going back to Alpine, I've just been Googling Gasly to see if I could find anything else out about this race ban. I've instead found 2 articles that are 37 minutes apart, and you can quite quickly tell where the Alpine PR department have stepped in. Because the first one has Ocon referring to Gasly's driving style as, quote, suicidal. And then 37 minutes later, Esteban Ocon forgives Pierre Gasly after Alpine teammates collide.
I like that. We've got another document just dropped. A representative from the Australian Grand Prix Corporation is required to report to the stewards at 20:15 local time in relation to the incident below, a spectator track invasion prior to the conclusion of the Australian Grand Prix. Now, that was mentioned in commentary because Crofty was saying that fans were trying to get on the track after the restart under the safety car. And apparently the people climbing fences and all sorts is what they were saying in commentary. I've not seen anything myself, but that is what they said in commentary. So Australian Grand Prix organisers might be in a bit of bother here. Probably a hefty fine and a very big ticking off, I'd imagine. It's not going to be not going to get banned from the calendar next year or anything, but certainly a big ticking off. So just something worth bearing in mind. We don't want fans, because that's. I mean, look at Silverstone last year with the dickheads invading the track and sitting in the middle of the track, and people defending him, going, "Oh, it's all right. It was under red flag." It's like, you do realise how fast these cars are going under red flag, right? It's enough to slice one of them in two. Do you know what I mean? Probably exaggerating a bit, but
human folding, yeah.
it's still going to be a big injury, probably deaths and God knows what to the drivers. So we don't want fans on track while it's still live. But I'm not maybe confusion, maybe fans thinking that the safety car going across the line was the end of the race. I don't know, but just something to keep an eye on. Nothing yet from Haas or on the Gasly thing. Was there anything you wanted to add on Williams, Will? I don't know if you did. I probably already asked you that. I'm sorry.
That's all right. No, not really. Besides what I said about there being a missed opportunity, and Sargent had a bit of a wobble of a weekend. FP1 obviously wasn't his fault with the failure. Then he spun in quali, and then he's, punted off. Was it De Vries in turn 1 for the restart? A little worrying there from Logan, and he just didn't have the pace on Alex all weekend. Now, admittedly, he hasn't driven around here before, whereas Bahrain and Saudi, he at least has got experience. We're off to Imola. Is it Imola next, or is it? Yeah, am I getting that right?
Baku.
Ooh, yeah, that'll be spicy. He's got experience there at least, but there's no margin for error. So we've got to keep an eye on that one, I think. But I'm hoping he can turn it around.
Yeah, just trying to think if anyone want to add. I mean, it sounds like it was tyre temperatures were an issue as well for Williams, and it was the case for everyone. So maybe just that turn 1 incident with De Vries, he's just gone in way too hot. Can't get the car slowed down. It's his error, isn't it? So can't blame De Vries for that.
Yeah, I guess that's an experience, isn't it? Which you'll get from a rookie. So we shouldn't go too harsh on him at this stage. But yeah, I'm hoping it doesn't dent his confidence much, because that's the thing that we saw a lot with Logan in junior formulas. If he had no pressure on him, he was really, really rapid. And if you think last year, the moment there was talk about an F1 seat, any hope of a championship went in the bin when he just kept throwing it into a wall and making mistakes. And I'm hoping we don't see a repeat of that in now he's in Formula One.
Driver of the day, then. We'll do driver of the day. Why not? Since we've been through the order, I wanted to quickly go through it. It took an hour and 20 minutes, but here we are. There's plenty to talk about, and I still feel like there's loads. We will come to you in chat as well for a few minutes shortly if there's anything we've missed that you want us to go over. Like I always say, it's a reaction sort of and not a review, so we're always going to miss something, so don't get too upset on that one. Let me know your driver of the day in the chat. I will read some of those out. Perez got the official driver of the day. Will, who are you going for?
I think I've got to stick with what I said right at the very start of the stream. That it's got to be Checo again. There was I mean, you could say Max as well for just being utterly dominant and looking pretty much untouchable after about lap 3. But Checo kept it exciting for us and kept making moves. There's no one else that particularly stands out, in all honesty. So yeah, there was no sort of mega drives today that definitely deserve driver of the day. So yeah, I'll stick with the fans' vote and stick with Perez.
Nebula has taken a point I was going to make. Says it was going to be Gasly, but I'd already written Gasly down. However, I can't give it to him now, unfortunately. I mean, well, I can do what I like, but I'm not going to, just because of that incident. So it's kind of thrown me off a little bit. I'm not really sure which way to go, because pit lane to 5th is great for Perez, so I totally get why people voted for him. But as people have already pointed out, a lot of luck in there. And when I gave George Russell driver of the day for Australia last year, I got a lot of stick because he'd got lucky with a safety car. So yeah, so it's a difficult one. Hulkenberg definitely a shout. I think Norris as well. What about Lewis Hamilton for his drive today?
I was thinking that, actually.
Yeah, look at the order.
That'd be up there. A lot. No, not really. What did Alonso do? Not much, really. Just sort of stayed where he was, and every now and then maybe looked like he was going to challenge Lewis, but didn't. So Yeah, Hamilton's up there for the debate as well. And I hadn't thought about Alpine and Gasly, to be fair, but yeah, driver of the weekend, I might also give it to someone like Hulk or Albon, but yeah, it's a tricky one. There's no clear cut winner this time, I think.
I don't think there is, and that's why I'm struggling a bit. Because also Verstappen, I could pick him because he was dominant, but he also made that mistake. It's such a huge error. Oh, locked his wheel up and went a bit wide onto the grass, and it cost him 3 seconds. God, destroyed his day. I'll have a think. I'm going to go through the. Honestly, I'm struggling. Like I said, it's not clear cut because I think there's an argument with a lot of people, like Piastri, for example. Really good drive, but he wouldn't be P8 without all the chaos and red flags and cites his penalty and all that. So do we mark him down for that? I don't know why I'm taking it so seriously. It really doesn't matter. But Siggy Brick says Hulkenberg. Bert Mylander says KMS boss, which is fair. Magnussen says Mr. Honkit. He made the race without a doubt. Lol. Theo says Gasly, Hulkenberg, Norris. Livo says Lando maybe. Cited Canvas says Checo. Redmond Barry says Hulkenberg. Nebula, I've read that one. Gasly, but Bart says low-key want to say Gasly. Avil says Gasly as well. FD30 says Hulkenberg. Davis says, yeah, a few people saying Burnt Mylander, which is fair enough. M. Harati says Perez. Greg says Verstappen, just too good at the moment. That's fair. AJ says Norris. Annette says Lando. Scrot says Norris.
I wasn't sure where that name was going for a second. You said Scrot. Yeah. I thought, hang on a minute.
I was reading. I was doing what I always do. I was reading one ahead whilst trying to read the one I'm trying to read, if that makes sense. So I'm not too much. But yeah, it's quite funny. I always manage to screw it up. Mickey says Russell. Quite a few people saying Burnt, which is fair. Bart says Hulkenberg had a good race. D says a child driver of the day, copium. Yeah, I get that one. I understand that. Caesar says Hamilton was mine. He was in beast mode. Bart says Hamilton is a fair shout. Double Thing Science says Hamilton. Pascal says Zhou and Hulkenberg. That's just something not interesting. You're all interesting. Of course you're all interesting, or most of you are. But it's trying to say a different shout in there. But it seems to be... I think this sort of sums up quite nicely, actually, Will, that there isn't a clear-cut answer. AJ says Norris, Hamilton, Stroll. So, there you go. Driver of the day, red flags. Simple as that. That's the easy answer, red flags. See, my instinct is just to say Verstappen.
It's getting to the point where we also need to have steward of the day. that'll really spice it up.
Steward of the day, I love it.
Michael Massey. No,
I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop. Not go there. Oh, that's been winding me up all weekend. I watched The Notebook with Ted in qualifying, and he was going, "What was he saying? Why is Michael Massey here? Why is he here?" And it's like, well, number one, he's with the Aussie supercars. Number two, he wasn't banned from the paddock, and number three, he was probably invited. I don't know. I don't get the controversy.
Yeah, I mean,
quite an easy answer.
I don't know why, but I almost expected him to be there anyway. I'm just glad that he stayed in the F1 paddock, because I think if he'd moved anywhere further apart from that, I'd fear for his safety. But yeah, I mean, he's allowed to do what he wants. He's not banned from the paddock, as you say. He can do what he likes, and he's in charge of the supercars anyway. So yeah, what are you gonna do?
Flavio Briatore still turns up to the paddock.
Exactly.
Don't get me started on Crashgate. Pit, yeah, that still gets me. How that result stands, I have no idea. Yes, I'm aware it's 2023. I'm fully aware, but Goodness me. Anyway, if you've got any questions or there's anything we missed that you really want us to mention, then please do pop it in chat. We will read a few out and then wrap it up, and I'm going to go and have a lie down. Azur says, you all agree that Ferrari are like Chelsea?
I know nothing about football, so I can't answer this.
I mean, they've probably spent less money building their car than Chelsea spent last year in the transfer window. I'm joking. I don't know, to be honest. Yeah.
Does that make Red Bull a bit like Man United because they went over the cost cap? No, that's not. That's the only bit of football knowledge I know, and I think I'm still wrong. Is it Man United or Man City that went over the?
Well, allegedly.
There you go. See, I'm already wrong, but
I was going to say Red Bull are definitely not like Man United. Man United are nowhere. Red Bull are runaway leaders. Did Max miss the pit box on the last restarts of side to canvas? No. There's been some pictures. The grid box, I think, I assume you mean side to canvas. There's shots that people are saying prove that he was outside of it. The rules are quite clear. His wheels are on the lines, so he is within the box. It's one of those... Like I said earlier, with track limits, you can be over the line so long as a very small part of your wheel is touching the white line, and you're still within track limits, and it's kind of a similar thing with the grid box. So CBP1 says, what will be the biggest move in the 2023 silly season? That's a cracking question.
It's a very good question. I saw that pop up and I'm sitting thinking, I know that's going to come up and I have no idea.
Sonoda to Mercedes. No, that's never going to happen. I'm struggling with this driver market this year because I for the first time possibly ever, whilst I think he will stay at Mercedes and do some more time in F1, I'm still not 100% sure on what Hamilton is going to do. I tend to believe that he will stay, but it kind of depends where the car is and what signals he's getting from the team for next year, doesn't it? So it could be something around that. Maybe Hamilton either taking a sabbatical or retiring, or maybe he goes somewhere else, or maybe then you've got to find someone to replace him. I don't know. I'm not saying he will retire, will leave, or anything like that, but I'm not as confident. Like, for example, when he was... couple of years ago when he was out of contract, I was so certain he would just sign with Mercedes, and then he did before the season even started, but I don't feel as confident this time around, so maybe something there perhaps. Other than that, I don't think it's going to be that dramatic this silly season, because Verstappen and Perez are tied down. Russell, I think, is if he isn't tied down, he basically is. I can't remember if he's 22 or 23 or 24 when his contract expires, but Mercedes will keep him. There's no reason to let him go.
Yeah, George is tied down.
Stroll ain't going nowhere. Alonso's tied down. Norris is tied down. I imagine Piastri's multi-year as well. Hulkenberg probably will do multi-year. Magnussen will probably stay as well. Alfa Romeo, maybe there'll be a change there. Zhou and Bottas, maybe they'll let Zhou go, but I think Zhou's done a really good job so far this season, so I think that'd be a bit unfair.
Technically, Stroll is not yet confirmed at Aston Martin. So there's a seat open potentially there.
I mean, yeah. I mean, Leclerc, if Ferrari carry on the way they are, he might try and find a move away, but that's all well and good. Same with Norris at McLaren. It's all well and good wanting to find a move away, but where'd you go? If you can't find a seat in a Red Bull or a Mercedes or an Aston at the moment, then you're better off staying where you are than going to a Williams, for example. I think the biggest change, probably, based on the noise around the team and based on the starts of the season they've had, is possibly a complete change at AlphaTauri, driver lineup wise.
Yeah, I agree. I think they are the only team besides Alfa Romeo potentially that have two spots open. Obviously, contracts mean nothing, but yeah, I can't see them continuing with Tsunoda after this year. I don't think De Vries is going to do enough. So it could be an all-rookie lineup in that car, which is that for the good of the team? I'm not sure, but yeah. Well, it's going to be an interesting one. There's no one at the moment besides maybe Iwasa that really stands out. So one of them may well get lucky and get a second year if that's going to be anyone, I think it will likely be De Vries, because Tsunoda's had enough time now and he's clearly not going anywhere. But you're right. It's a very interesting situation down there. And obviously not just the drivers, the team on a whole, what's happening to it is going to be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we're only 3 races into the season as well. Tsunoda and De Vries might be absolutely amazing for the rest of the season. But I think you touched on it earlier as well. There are the bigger question marks around AlphaTauri than who's going to be driving there, aren't there, at the moment? Franz Tost doesn't have a lot of positives to say, does he, at the moment, about the team? Helmut Marko's talking about changing names or branding or whatever, or moving them to England, but there are still question marks around. A long way to go this season. Like I say, Tsunoda might score points every race between now and the end of the year, and they'll give him a new contract. De Vries might do the same. I think the car's terrible. But, yeah. I've just noticed only 2 drivers haven't scored this season, by the way, already. Logan Sargent and Nick De Vries. Is that an unusual thing? It feels like an unusual thing.
De Vries coming into the season, I'd be surprised. Logan, I'm not particularly shocked yet. Or maybe not coming into the season, I wasn't shocked, but looking at where Williams' pace is in the hands of Albon, maybe that's a little bit more surprising, but he's also a rookie. Yeah, I'm more surprised that, you know, the likes of Tsunoda has got a point on the board at this point, or even Magnussen. He's obviously got a point now. I don't know. I feel like there's not as much of a defined back of the pack like there used to be back in the early 2010s, up until sort of Manor left. Then Williams took over as that one back marker team. There isn't really that group anymore. It's just a bigger midfield. So yeah, I'm gonna say I'm not wholly surprised by the 2 that haven't got points. I'll be more surprised if we get to the end of the season and they haven't got any, but we are still only 3 races in. And they are technically both rookies.
We shall see. I'm not going to say anymore. I was going to say some more on AlphaTauri. I'm not going to. I was going to think about Red Bull Juniors as well. They've got some good potential out there. I'm not sure anyone's ready yet, but there's a whole season to get through, so we'll see. But yeah, I think I usually say someone holds the key to the driver market. Hamilton at the moment. I think, like I say, I'm not as confident, but I still think he will stay because he's not going to go to Red Bull. Aston aren't going to ship Alonso out. I mean, look at the relationship they've got already. Chanting at the podium. They get on to say, well, they're not going to ship Alonso out for Hamilton, and he's not going to go to Ferrari because, let's face it, why would you at the moment? So I just don't see him going anywhere. So maybe, but if he decides tomorrow to go, then it's going to be a hell of a shuffle because all of a sudden there are a lot of drivers trying to get out of contracts at lower down teams, aren't there? So it's one of those we shall see moments. Any chance of another team in F1 next year, says Mickey? I don't think so, no. Too late now, I would imagine. But a lot of talk about, is it Dave Richards?
Is this Formula Equal we were on about?
Yeah, Formula Equal that he's launching.
Yeah.
50-50.
I will be amazed if they can get it 50-50. I think on paper that's a great idea. Whether I've got to be very careful how I word this next sentence without annoying people. I don't think they'll get the drivers 50-50 yet, because I don't think there's anyone there that's ready to move up into Formula One. I think from a boardroom level, definitely. From an engineering level, it's definitely doable. The whole team is such a big push. And I think you've just got to... I always worry when you come in 50-50 like that, and you come in and getting the best engineers, which could be men or women, just to be clear, that I feel should always be the top focus. Having it 50-50 is a lovely thing to have. And obviously, in an ideal world, it would be. But when you start to put something that's not performance above as the top factor, I worry what that does for overall team performance. And I just look back at the Pareto Autosport team in IndyCar as a current example of that, where that is a sort of all-female team pretty much. They don't hire many men, if any. and they've so far struggled, just in terms of actually hiring and getting numbers up even to begin with. So it's obviously a very difficult topic, and I'm aware I'm a straight white man talking here, so I shouldn't really be allowed to have an an opinion on it without getting in trouble. But yeah, it's an interesting one.
Yeah, I mean, from a driver's perspective, and I guess it's the same for engineers. The only I don't know what the equivalent would be for engineers, but from a driver's perspective, the only gauge should be the stopwatch. If you're fast enough, you're good enough. But it's not always the way it goes, is it? With pay drivers and things like that, it is a difficult conversation, and I think
I
probably
also,
for another day, because I could be here all day talking about it. But I think it's, like you said, it's a really lovely idea on paper, but you still need the right people, especially if you're launching a Formula One team from scratch. You need the right people, and it could be that's 100% women, it could be 100% men, but you need the right people in there. But I mean, strategists. Oh, what was the name of the Red Bull strategist? I can't remember her name.
Hannah Schmitz.
That's it, Hannah Schmitz.
Yeah.
Bernie Collins, get one of them in on your strategies. I think. But by the way, actually, I think I said it the other week. Bernie Collins on commentary in Saudi Arabia I loved that insight that we don't normally get. We like to think we know we're talking about strategy, but she really did, and it was really nice to get the insight of what they do in practice and stuff like that. So hopefully we get a lot more of Bernie Collins this year. Definitely.
Yeah. The other ironic thing that I've just been reminded at looking at the comments is there are rumours that Formula Equal may have Mazepin backing, which,
oh dear,
for a team that's pushing male and female equality, having Mazepin in the team is a little bit of a hypocritical stance, I think. But again, maybe that's something we shouldn't get into today.
I think it's like, just on teams coming in. I think, and I'd be amazed if Andretti don't find a way in. They seem adamant. But no, yeah. I don't think we'll see it. To kind of go back to the question, I don't think we'll see a new team before 2026. Honestly, is the W Series still a thing? Says Bart. Do you know, I've seen nothing on it at all. It's all about the F1 Academy, isn't it?
Yep, I'm planning a video on this as we speak, because I believe, well, they've never said it's over, but it practically is. They're still active on things like social media, but a season, if they were having a season this year, it would have been announced. We would have had a calendar by now. Yeah. If it's happening, then they've lost a lot of their drivers to F1 Academy already. They are unlikely to be on the support schedule for any Formula One races now. That will have all been sewn up and done before this season got underway. And yeah, it's again a very Formula Series is always a very weird one for me, because I don't understand why Formula One didn't just basically buy that out when they went into funding issues, and rather than starting F1 Academy, because surely having a sort of established championship was better than starting from scratch. So I wonder, and I'm still researching. It's probably the video I've put my most amount of research in for, because again, it's quite a hot topic at the moment. But yeah, I wonder if there was something fundamentally wrong with the way W Series was set up, that F1 basically said, no, we need to start F1 Academy from scratch and do it completely our way. But that they would have ended up spending more money doing that. So clearly there was something with W Series that they didn't like. Otherwise, yeah, I don't see why they didn't give them the funding.
KMS Boss says W Series folded, and Greg says W Series is gone and F1 Academy took over. I've not seen anything official to say that they have absolutely folded. But I know they didn't finish last season. Like you say, though, it's April. So if they were having a season this year, we'd know by now, surely. So maybe they've just decided they're not going to bother now with F1 Academy coming in. Maybe, I don't know. I'll have a look into that, or keep an eye out for Will's video. There you go. That's what you do there.
It'll be one of the ones that appears in the next 4 weeks without Formula One. I'm going to fill the content somehow.
FD30 says too much debt. Starting F1 Academy will be cheaper.
Yeah, potentially. Actually, that's a very good point.
I just realised I didn't watch the F2 and F3 today, so I need to watch that when I get.
Oh, you've missed a cracker. You've missed two crackers of a race. They were very, very good. If anyone hasn't watched it, keep an eye on the highlights. It's interesting as well. F2 in particular had a controversial moment at the end, which you'll know what I'm on about when you see it. But that's gonna be. I'm surprised we've not had enough people talking about that on Twitter already, quite frankly. But yeah, I'll leave that to those that haven't been spoiled yet to watch it happen. But all I'll say, it's no spoiler that Roy Nissany was in some way, shape, or form involved.
Well,
so.
Fill in the blank says, for me, next season is going to be another Red Bull sweep. Fill in the blanks is already looking ahead to next year. Yeah.
Bear in mind that this year Red Bull will feel the hurt of their cost cap breach penalty. So I have a feeling, and maybe it's wishful thinking, that next year will be a case of, it's been 3 years of pretty much stable regulations. Everyone will catch up and we'll have a very, very tight field.
I'm not convinced it's going to hurt them at all, to be honest, because they've got such an advantage now that they could probably have both championships all but wrapped up by the summer break, and then they could just focus fully on next year and not worry about developing this year's car.
True.
Plus, from what they said at Red Bull, it's about being efficient with the time they've got. So if they work it properly, it probably won't affect them too badly. It'll surely have some kind of effect, but I don't think it's good. I think a lot of people think that, or seem to think that it means that they're going to really get hit hard, but I don't think they will. And just on cost cap, I think they'll be going in soon. So hopefully we'll hear something back before the championship's decided this year. It's all new, I know, but hopefully it'll come. Bart says next shake will be 2026. I think the great thing about regulations in F1, as we saw in 2021, is the longer we stick to a set of regulations, the closer the field will get over time. So in theory, 2025, for example, could be an incredible season because there's only so fast that Red Bull's going to go before everyone else starts closing that gap. So we could be in a situation where we have a 2021 where we have an epic championship fight from start to finish. Hopefully a bit less controversy along the way, but it could be an epic season like that, really close between the top two drivers. And then 2026, we have a situation where a Mercedes or a Ferrari or a Red Bull or an Aston nail the regulations and are a second and a half quicker than everybody else again. It's the problem with changing the regulations so often. Somebody's always going to nail it and someone's always going to get it wrong. So I know you can't stick with regulations the same forever because that's not what Formula One is, but I sometimes wish they'd leave a little more time to let the field converge and let us have a few good seasons.
Yeah, it was a case of getting the regulations to a point where we can have good racing and then give it a couple of years. I think everyone sort of expected, we had good racing, great. So 2022, we'll have amazing championships out the bag. And then they were wondering, well, hang on a minute, why was 2021 a closer championship? And it's because those regulations have been given, if anything, actually an extra year to stabilise. And I wonder if the token system played a part in making that season so balanced between Red Bull and Mercedes as well. So give it a year or two, and I think we're in for another cracker of a season. It's a case of just playing the waiting game and letting time take its course and letting the field slowly converge.
CPB says Hamilton versus Verstappen rematch for 2025. Yes, please. That'd be good fun. I think their understanding the regulations is too far ahead of the others to make enough inroads. Hopefully I'm wrong. No, that's filling the blanks, just explaining their call on Red Bull for next year. Cited Canvas says teams bringing updates for Baku, right? I think so. I've not got a list in front of me, but I think McLaren have got some hefty upgrades coming. In fact, I'd be amazed with a 4-week break that we don't see quite a few upgrades because there's no other race to bring them to in the meantime, is there? We would have had China, for example, so I'd imagine that we're going to get quite a few in Baku. Plus, that's the start of
the European season, isn't it?
A bit of a chaotic run because you've got Baku on the 4th, back to back with Miami. Then it's Imola, Monaco, Spain. Where's the calendar dates? Hang on, because I bet I'll do it a bit easier then. So you've got Azerbaijan and Miami back to back because apparently you have to have Baku back to back with a race from North America. But anyway, then you've got Imola and Monaco back to back. Then you've got Spain, and then you've got Canada, and then you've got back to back Austria and Britain, back to back Hungary and Belgium. Then it's a summer break. So it's a bit of a mad run. So I'd imagine you want to get your updates in for Baku because it's going to get a bit chaotic from there. So yeah, I mean, definitely, I know for a fact McLaren are. So I'd be surprised if others don't, to be honest. Sash says, let's just ban Adrian Newey from F1. That'll sort things out. That man, he can see air. I'm sure he will. Were you able to watch the Australian Supercars over the weekend? If so, what's your opinion on the cars and the racing? I didn't see the Australian Supercars. No, it wasn't on Sky, was it? Or not that I saw. So I might try and find some stuff on YouTube and have a look, because that could be quite good.
It's all on Fox, I think. The only bit I've seen from the Supercars is the one that caught fire in the pit lane, and that's about it.
FD30 says Belgium before the summer. Yes, it is. It's Zandvoort is the race after the summer break this year. It's usually Belgium, isn't it? But no, we've got Belgium a little bit earlier this year. Possibly the last one as well. We'll kick off about that nearer the time. So I'm going to have a look. I'll read some of your comments, take some more questions super quickly, and then we'll wrap it up in a couple of minutes, because that's me about done, I think. I think a few years back, Alonso wanted to reintroduce the Diaz name to honour his mother or something, says Dell. I think he's having a conversation with somebody else about Alonso's name there, so but I'll give it a read out anyway. Let's be honest, there's going to end up being 25 races in the future. Yeah. It'll be 25 races. They'll probably do a third of the season in sprints, which is kind of not far off where we are now, really, is it? So
more work for you and me then.
Yeah, sprints, yay. Although I will say I'm maybe in the minority here. I do applaud, really loose term, the decision to make, or the talk they're going to make them stand alone and have a separate qualifying for. Or not, it's not the separate qualifying I applaud. It's the fact that the sprint race is not going to dictate the grid. Or the idea is, or the aim is for Baku, but certainly I think for Austria, that the sprint does not form the grid for the race. So the race is from the qualifying on Friday, and then they want to do a qualifying Saturday morning for the sprint, when actually I think you could just do qualifying on a Friday. This will not go down well. Reverse the top 10 on Saturday, and then your grid is still set from the Friday qualifying.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, it works for F2 and F3, doesn't it? So,
yeah.
I would love to see a whole reverse grid, but we've discussed that, I'm sure, to death, haven't we? So, and we all know it's probably not going to happen. So, yeah.
So long as it's standalone, I'm happy with however they do it. Really, not happy. It's an improvement, in my opinion. I don't think I'll ever be. I don't dislike sprints, but I'm not one of these that's obsessed by them. If they keep them, fine. If they get rid of them, also fine. That's kind of how I feel about sprints. I know it's a bit on the fence, but it's nice. I'd rather have a race than an FP3 session, but I'd also rather have just normal qualifying on a Saturday than a sprint. So I'm not really fussed either way. If you let Stefano have his way, there'll be there'll be a race every week. Says fill in the blanks. Yeah, he said some stuff this week, hasn't he?
It's risky when he opens his mouth, isn't it?
Well, the funniest one of all is when he says they've got provisions in their rules for if a country isn't going the right way in human rights, they'll not race there. And I'm just like, the check you receive says differently, Stefano. I'm not that naive. I think we're going to wrap it up there, because I am about to lose my voice, I think. I just haven't looked if there's anything that we've missed. Greg says, how didn't Hamilton get investigated for the safety car debacle? Good question, actually. Just to address this, so he doesn't have to stay, because he's the leader, he doesn't have to stay within 10 car lengths of the safety car at the restart. Where is... I wrote this down, and I need to try and find it now. Did I put it under the Hamilton stuff? Bear with me. I'm sure I wrote this down. I'm sure I did. I've got so many notes on that flipping restart. Actually, that's another thing. Actually, sorry, we'll come back to that in a second while I'm looking for it. We also had that bizarre situation, Will, if you recall, of cars at the safety car at the red flag restart stopping at turn 6 and drivers trying not to run into the back of them. What the hell was that? What was that about? That was ridiculous.
Yeah, I still don't quite understand. I was in all honesty half asleep, so I'm glad you reminded me, because I wasn't sure whether that was real or not. But yeah, just really, really strange, because it's a blind corner as well. So of all the places to stop, why there? But just odd. I'm surprised there wasn't a penalty dished. I don't think there was a penalty dished out.
Wasn't even investigated.
Yeah, it was just very, very strange. But I think that there was a lot of confusion in general with that restart, as you touched upon, with Verstappen thinking Hamilton was breaking the rules. I thought Hamilton was breaking the rules, but as it turns out, he wasn't. So, yeah, really, really odd.
I'm sure I wrote it down, but I clearly haven't. So basically, the lead driver in that situation, which is Hamilton, obviously, in that situation, can dictate the pace, and if he wants to or needs to, can drop more than 10 car lengths behind a safety car. I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe everyone behind has to stay within 10 car lengths of the car ahead, but the leader can drop further back from the safety car. So I'm not going to go looking in the rules. It's all in there, and it'll be very long-winded, and it'll be worded in such a crazy way. But that's why Hamilton wasn't given any kind of penalty or anything for that one. I could have sworn I've written that down, and I can't find it. Or I'm going to have a look for my notes in a minute and put it under Nick De Vries or something for some reason. Who knows? But that's basically it, really. There's no investigation. It's crazy. I'm going to go because chat have been a bit crackers now. People are falling out for some reason. I don't know why. People can't just get along. Yeah. Says every... no, anyway. I'm just good. Let's leave it there. Thank you very much, Will. Quick, stop me before I'm my own worst enemy sometimes. Thank you very much, Will. It's been a pleasure to talk to you, mate. Really chaotic race. Enjoyable. The poll, by the way, I'll end it now, for rating the race. 41% said it was great, 40% said good, 11% said average, and 6% said bad. So there we go. I think it was a good race. I'm not going to say great, because I think I'm not one that believes that the chaos makes for great racing. But we did see some really good stuff out there, so I thought it was a really good race. Not far off great, but we did have a lot of tyre saving as well. But it's a little bit frustrating, mate, that this is it now until a month's time, 4 weeks. We're leaving on that high. It's shocking. I'm appalled. Yeah, thank you very much, Will, mate. It's been a pleasure chatting to you on this one, and hopefully get you back on in the future.
Yeah, been great fun. It's as I said, I'm glad I was awake for it. I was afraid I'd end up sleeping in. So
yeah, I was like, oh, I hope Will gets up. But yes, thank you very much, mate, and I'm sure I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, you too, man. Thank you.
Thank you to Will. Thank you as well to you guys for tuning in. Again, sorry if I've been a bit all over the place. I've got like the symptoms of COVID. It is COVID. I've tested, but I've also got the really swimmy, muddy head. So I've been all over the place today and all weekend. So apologies. Bear that in mind before you attack me in the comments later. I probably won't be looking at them anyway because I can't be bothered. I'm off to bed. But yes, thank you very much for joining me. Now I will be back. Between now and Baku. I am going to go take a couple of days though to rest up and take a lot of medication and hopefully feel a little bit better. But I will be back between now and Baku. I am going to try some new content out because I think interest in the season is going to start to dwindle soon, and previews and reactions are all well and good, but I think people are starting to lose interest already, those who only watch for the championship battle. I think we're going to have a great season in behind, so bear that in mind. But there will be some new stuff as well, and I will get that out to you between now and Baku. I'm not going to disappear for 4 weeks. Don't worry about that one. You can follow me on social media. The stuff's on screen that you need there, at F1 Word and the F1 Word across all of those. You can support the channel as well through Patreon and Super Chats and Super Thanks. I'm reading them off the list. I don't know what Super Thanks is, but you can do if you like. Everything goes back into the channel and massively appreciated. But I'll be back soon. And that's all you need to know. I'm off for a lie down. Have a good day, everyone. Have a good night if you're on the other side of the world. Have a good day if you're over here in Europe or wherever you are in the world. Just have a great time. Just be really, really good. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word. And until next time, goodbye.